Hello, everyone. Another book club today with Women on the Move. And today is Thursday, April the 4th. The year is 2024. So we'll start with introductions. I'm Cindy.
I'm Harriet.
I'm Melody.
Odella.
I'm Sam.
I'm Tammy.
I'm Tiffany.
I'm Sadie.
All right. So now you know who we illustrious women are. And I'm going to turn it over to tonight's host, who is Odella. She will introduce the book title, the author, and she's going to lead the book club. So Odella, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So our book for this evening is Desire of My Heart, and the author is Heidi Gray McGill. This actually is her first novel, and the story takes place in Creeks Corner, Missouri, and the year is roughly 1858. And we're introduced to the primary character. Her name is Rachel. Rachel and her brother live in an orphanage, but the focus of the story is about family, and we are introduced to the concept of a found family. One of the things that we do know about Rachel early on is that she has always wanted a family, and that is the desire of her heart. So I've put together a few questions. I hope that they will stimulate your thinking tonight, ladies. And so my first question is, one of the things of desire of my heart is family. Aside from the smaller family groups of Rachel and Charlie and Melvin and his children, there is also the idea of a found family. Which found family connections do you relate to the most? Which do you find most enduring? So anybody can start.
Well, I liked their when the little boy took up with Grammy. I thought that was really sweet, and they just blended together right away as a found family, and it was just really sweet, and a huge connection there right away.
You know what? I will share. I like the family unit of Grammy and Martha. I thought that was so special, the bond between those two women. It was absolutely beautiful. And Grammy was just an astounding woman, but I like that bond.
Mm-hmm.
I have to agree. But I also liked, at the time it was the cook, just knowing that she helped her and really, was very impactful in her life.
I think the cook's name was Eileen. Was that it?
Adeline. It started with an A.
Okay.
Right. And we didn't even find out her name
Adeline.
until late in the book.
Adine. Adine.
Adine.
And they call her Nan Adine.
Adine. I think it's Aideen. Adine.
Yes. Adine.
Right. Adine.
Nadine. Anyone else want to share?
I liked Adine and Patty, her husband, their love. And then they took in the kids. They felt that, they just always watched over them.
Yes.
And that was part of their family on there. So I like that part.
I thought it was so great that they connected back up again. And, that was all a part of, that, between Grammy and Adine and Patty. And it just made it so, I don't know, came kind of like a full circle in a sense.
I really liked Melvin and his acceptance and total, absolute, unconditional love for those two kids in the orphanage. When he was approached by Thomas and said, not Thomas, by Charlie, when Charlie said, "We need you and you need us." But then he fully accepted them. He left them, very well taken care of. And I thought his total acceptance and love for them was just wonderful.
Right. And it's funny because he went there with the intention to give up his children.
Give up the
Right.
kids.
Yes.
And you knew how he kind of just fell into it. You just kind of, he was like, okay, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. And that to me, that's God.
For me, I think
Amen.
the relationship between Rachel and her brother was so endearing to me, because I had two younger brothers, and we had all three of my brothers, we had just a similar bond. And we could laugh about things together, and even now we could talk about our childhood, and we were raised by a single mom, so in a sense we were always looking out for one another. So that really reminded me of my relationship with my brothers, and to see that they were always she was always looking out for him, and he was always looking out for her, was really, really touching.
That's nice. That's nice.
I
Any
thought
other
the
comments?
relationship between Thomas and his newfound little brother was
Mhm.
very sweet. It was very endearing, and they just took to each other so well. And for them not to have ever known each other, they just
Mhm.
the relationship there. It was like they became brothers almost instantly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, early on in the story, we learn, even after Rachel and I think it's Melvin, they get married, they become a unit.
Right.
Unfortunately, he dies early in the story. And the question or the thought that I pondered over is, how can God grant us a desire such as that, a family, and then do nothing to prevent it being taken away? And I was thinking about Rachel. Part of her journey was always having to wait on God's perfect timing rather than taking matters into her own hands. So, what are your thoughts about those two ideas? Do
That
they
was
connect
God's
anyway?
perfect timing. I thought that was God's perfect timing. She was given another opportunity. I think she had to go through some things in order to get to where in the book that the desires of her heart, because when she married Melvin, she didn't love him, and she wanted someone that she loved.
Right. I think just again, it was, I think, God's timing in a lot of those just different things in how he managed things, the people they met that actually ended up becoming family. Just how all of the God's timing was just so right, like even down to when he went to the bank and made sure she was on that, and that Charlie was also on the for the money, and that they were taken
Yes.
care of. It was like he kind of I don't know, not, I don't want to say predicted, but just he was proactive in a sense, that making sure he was taking care of his family, and perhaps losing his wife created that in him, so that he was able to just move forward and know that he needed to continue to do this all along the way.
Exactly. And then I believe we have desires of our heart, and we think it's going to work out a certain way, but God's way is always the best way. So when you think about it, God granted her protection and safety away from being married off to somebody just for money, from the lady from the orphanage. So, and then Rachel was proactive as well. She's like making this man a proposition. Anyway,
Absolutely.
so she did get away from the orphanage. So that was God's protection, getting her away from the orphanage. Melvin's protection over her with what Sam just said perfectly. And then even though he died, I believe at the time he died, she was starting to have feelings for him. It's growing. she was starting to have feelings because she was devastated. It's
Mhm.
like, I'm way out here. I have all these children now, and what am I going to do in this house? But then, did God give her the desire of her heart in terms of love? Oh, yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
At the end,
absolutely.
she got family. She had family with her brother Charlie in the beginning, then Melvin and his family, Grammy and Martha, and then Cook and Patty, and then the new man comes into her life.
Yeah.
And then at the
Quit.
end, full circle, and then what does she get? A baby of her own.
Oh, yeah.
So I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
it was just phenomenal. God's timing was perfect, but it's not always the way we think it's going to happen.
That's true. That's true. Well, thinking about Rachel's reaction to Melvin's death in chapter 15 echoes the quality, well, echoes that of the Israelites in the wilderness. Remember in the Bible, they just were lost and they just went around in circles, circles, circles. So how did Rachel's acquisition make you feel as you read that? She was angry. She was hurt. She, she cried out to God, how could you do this to me? Um, did it make you look at the Israelites differently in light of what Rachel had to go through? What do you think?
I don't know about that part. I didn't relate it to the Israelites on there, but she just went into a depression, just deeper and deeper into a depression because of her circumstance. She finally got a family and then it was taken away from her, the husband was taken away from her on there. And I just like, she was what, 17 and
17.
have all
Yeah.
that responsibility of all these kids and out in nowhere and
Property and all of that.
yes,
Mhm.
yes,
I think it was so overwhelming that she just couldn't. It was all she could do to just pray out, even to cry
right.
out.
Mhm.
And it just I just feel like, God, for one, provided a dean to come, ended up coming, but then also Grammy just, being there like, okay, I need to step up and be here. I mean, here's this older lady, she's having to travel 2 days just to get to her newfound family in a sense. And um it just goes to show you that, God does put people into our lives, even if it's just for a season, to learn different things. And I ended up buying the other two books, and the fourth one is on its, well, when it comes back out of whatever. And so I've read the rest of them, and it
Okay.
kind of goes back on that, and how she reflects on Melvin's death, and that she was close to him, and it did teach her some different things, and just allowing her to minister to others, and at the same time to be ministered when she needed to be.
Mhm.
And it certainly talks about having trust in God.
Mhm.
Yes.
You definitely have to have that. Changing the direction just a bit, Charlie is called the man of the house 3 times throughout the novel. By Rachel in chapter 15, by Grammy in chapter 17, and by the sheriff in chapter 18. What did each person mean when giving Charlie that title? What do you think they meant?
That he was the response. And, in those days, it's like the man was the provider, the protector. So when Melvin was gone, basically they were saying, Charlie, hey, you're the man of the house. You have to provide emotionally for them, you know, I don't know, financially, you have to provide, you have to see these people's needs. It's your job now. You're the man of the house. There's no other man here. He was the oldest one, even though in the beginning of the story he was 13 years old. So maybe he was
Yes.
14 at the time. But my gosh, how
14.
many 14-year-olds do you know?
But women weren't in decision-making positions at that time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That's why Melvin put him in charge of the money.
The money,
Right,
exactly.
right.
And in that time, and a lot of times we've seen it even in our lifetime, where it was that patriarchal leadership. So it was the man's responsibility to provide, and if the husband or the father wasn't there, then it did pass on to the oldest
Son, that's right.
oldest son. So they took on those responsibilities, or to the best of their ability. So I think it was just, they were kind of reminding him that because your dad, and I'm going to call him his dad because
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
the relationship was so strong. Because your dad is gone, he trusted you. And I think that was kind of, they were trying to give him a confidence. He trusted you that you would be able to take on this role and be successful. So I think, even though it was said to him, as Ardella was saying 3 different times, the implication was still there that your dad trusted you, you're more than able. And I didn't think they meant it in a negative, like
No.
these days they would say, oh, you can't make the young man have all that responsibility, it'll stress him out. Back then they didn't have those kind of thought processes.
Right.
The young man had to step up.
Well, one of the things that I found was that Patty also helped him, because he prepared him for that role. He taught him how to shoot. He taught him how to do many of the things that you would take on as that role. So his first father or his first teacher was really Patty, who was preparing him for that role.
Right. And, he proved himself to Melvin too, because even though this idea was Rachel's and she got him on board very quickly, when it came to shove, when she went to approach him, she like froze, and Charlie took over and just said, well, this is what we need to do, and this is it, and this is how it needs to work. And and it was like, I think at that point too, Melvin was like, okay. He became the bridge for both of them, because one, she's just trying to get out of a bad situation, and he is trying to get out of the situation of, I love my kids, but I'm not doing enough for them. And so it became a unit, it became a family. But had Charlie not have stepped in and said, this is what it's going to be, because Rachel was going to go kind of quite quit, she wasn't exactly, she didn't go boldly, I should say, and it even surprised her how much he was like, oh, he really, he got the whole idea.
Exactly. And Melody, when you say that, when you shared what you did, it made me think, Rachel, yes, had the idea, but back then women didn't approach men to say things like that. So she had the good intentions, but then when it came down to talking and doing it, she's like, "Ooh, this is like so foreign to me. I'm approaching a male, and this is an adult." So I think her fear came in, and then her brother took over. So, but at least she was the instigator. She got it going because Charlie didn't have the idea. And plus, Charlie wasn't the one who was getting ready to be married off.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, Rachel she wanted to be with Charlie because she knew that, they would be separated. She'd probably never see her brother again. So, yeah, they worked in conjunction well together.
Yeah. Earlier, someone spoke about Martha and Sheriff Atkins' relationship being a really sweet one. Everyone around them seemed to see potential for them. What do you think they saw? What was about the two of them that made people think that they would be a good match?
You mean the sheriff and Martha?
Yes.
I think just they both had a heart for each other. They were tender towards each other and kind of sidestepping. Neither one of them knew how to keep moving forward. But they both had the interest, but neither one of them realized that they both had the interest. And so, I think it helped to have other people go, hey,
Nudge them.
this is a good thing. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Well,
I
I
just
think,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I think she almost gave up because she thought she was going to be an old maid. She thought she
Correct.
was sent to the West and that was what was going to happen. That was her lot in life. And that was just going to be it. And I think others saw potential in her that no, you can still be 26 years old and still have a life and find a husband. 26 is, yeah, that was really old, an old maid.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, yes, I think both of them, they were older,
Yes.
for that time. And they both reminded me of two who have probably never been in a serious relationship before. We know Martha had it, but he probably hadn't either. He's the sheriff. He's just a nice guy, but there hasn't been anybody. And then he takes an interest in Martha. I just thought it was precious and it was sweet.
I think
Like her
also,
cookies, right?
yeah, I think also having the other family around during that time, like having Thomas visit, having those different things, it actually um it kind of forced them to do things
Correct.
together,
Mhm.
to see each other in a different way. Where before it was like, Grammy would have them over, but not necessarily, she, wasn't trying to necessarily push them together. She just saw somebody who needed, a meal and kind of hoped. But again, like we said, women weren't supposed to really, push towards that. But by having family around and other things, or kids around, and little comments that they would say here and there, it kind of went, oh really,
Exactly. It made the interactions more natural and not forced.
Yes.
And
Any other
the sheriff always
comments?
had his eye on her though, because they saw him looking at her, so it's like,
Yeah.
give him a little nudge.
Yeah, that's true. What do you guys think about? What do you think was the reason for Rachel's reaction to Pete when she first saw him in chapter 20? And then on the opposite side of that, how did the verse that Grammy gave Rachel impact, her desire? It said, delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thy heart. But Grammy told her that Pete was not that person.
Not the one. Yeah.
Right. I think Pete was a handsome, charismatic guy, and she was drawn to that.
Mhm.
And she's a young girl. Her husband has died, and the husband, it was more of a marriage of necessity on everybody's part. It worked for a while until, death intervened. But this may have been the first man that she's attracted to and has some feelings towards, but it doesn't mean that it's the right one for you.
Right.
I think Grammy was full of wisdom. I mean,
Yes.
she had
Mhm.
so much wisdom because she knew right away, this is not the man for you.
Yeah.
It's almost like she had a direct line. And I think they mentioned that one time with God. She was in tune with what he wanted for Rachel.
Mhm.
I think that's an excellent point. And also, little Thomas.
Yes.
Remember the first time he saw her, he said, just ran into her arms, and they were saying, well, how did you know her? Because God showed me that that's my granny.
Yes.
And I just thought,
Yes.
and I really do think that Grammy was truly anointed and
Yes.
to guide Rachel and her and in her way. Because that lady was awesome. And then
Mhm.
at what was she, 64, and went to when she heard about Melvin dying,
Yes.
went and said, oh, I have to go see about my family. And
Right.
that was so refreshing to me, just how they immediately, it was brought up before, how they immediately bonded. And I think that was a spiritual connection that was brought about when they all saw each other physically. They
Yeah.
knew there was something about these people that God has called us to be this family. And I thought that was really powerful. I remember hearing someone say not too long ago, there are people that God will put in your life for a reason,
A season.
or a season, or forever. And I think that was there forever.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
It just gave me chills when you said what you did, because yes, it was an anointed relationship. And Grammy, there was no hesitation. She just closed down her
Mhm.
house, and it's like, come on,
Mhm.
Martha, we're going. And she
Yep.
wasn't in the best of health.
Mm-mm.
So that was profound.
It was profound, especially since it was a 2-day
Thank you.
ride away
On a
and not a
wagon, you know how
comfortable ride.
comfortable that would be?
And not a comfortable.
Mhm.
Yes.
And you had to sleep out in the woods. And she realized all of this. Well, I don't know, the
Mhm.
bush, the woods, wherever, the prairie.
That's true. So the children in the novel were not raised with the adage, children should be seen and not heard. This is especially true when we see Thomas and his wooden horse, cow Gerda.
Mm-hmm.
How does giving a voice to this little boy help add to the story and his character development?
I personally, with me, it brought home and how much our children bring to our lives. Because my kids used to do this all the time. I mean, stories, they would be using their fingers and telling stories, and even teaching, to listen to a kid go on and on about a story that maybe they've embellished a little bit. It brings the heart of where that child is. And oftentimes their own events, if you listen enough, they're telling you exactly what they're going through, or telling you exactly what they're excited about, just through those stories. And so for me, that just touched my heart, just showed me that family was very important, and that everyone had a voice.
Anyone else? Another thing that Desire of My Heart addresses is mental health.
Absolutely.
Rachel's depression episodes were especially poignant in the story. How did the people support those facing mental health challenges in the frontier? What did we see happening? How did they support Rachel?
I truly believe when Emmy came, they knew she was depressed, but they just surrounded her with love and understanding and acceptance. But
Mhm.
then when it was continuing to go on, it's like they were trying to motivate her, you've got to do things, we've got to get you out of these doldrums. So
Right.
they encouraged her, but they still allowed her to be. They were very caring and compassionate towards
But they all
I
took a
agree.
hand in taking care of each other too,
her.
from
Yes.
farm to farm to farm, or house to house. They would all step up and do whatever needed to be done to take care of whatever was going on with the neighbor or the friend or the family.
Mhm.
So it wasn't for her to worry about. She could work on just getting better.
Mhm.
Yes. And guess what finally happens? Marshall Clint enters the picture.
Yes.
Yes. And somehow we know, and Grammy seems to know, that Marshall Clint is perfect for Rachel, right?
Mhm.
So, what is revealed to prove that Pete Manning wasn't the right person, but yet Clint was?
Well, Pete basically had already said that he wasn't following God, that he was angry with God.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was the big thing. And I think Rachel knew, even in her fog, that she still needed to trust in God. And so then, um when Clint, you know talked about God and talked about, what was happening. It was completely different. Now, Rachel didn't necessarily hear that. I think it was Adine that kind of forced that hand, right? Didn't she? She's the one who sent them on a ride together to go see Grammy.
Yes, she did.
And
Right.
it's like she just knew it was time. Rachel needed a change of scenery in a sense, but she also knew maybe this would be an opportunity for the two of them to get to know each other, because you have to go 2 days without talking to people is not something that's going to happen.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
true.
does show the trust, excuse me, that Grammy had for allowing her to go with Clint, that she believed he was a man of
You mean
stature.
you mean Adine?
Adine, yes, Adine. I said Grammy. I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
But yeah,
And he
no,
had integrity,
Yes.
and she knew that.
Correct.
it was both of those ladies. Grammy, I think, had a really fierce, um, connection with God, but Adine as well. I think she knew. Um, they both, her and Patty both, they just followed, okay, Lord, what's next for us? And then it ended up that they stopped at the farm, and that was what was next for them. It wasn't what they were intending, but it was, it worked, and it was exactly what they needed at that time.
So I have two small questions for you. The first is, Singing Bird's community saw her as cursed and judged her nearly worthless, yet she was kind and she was talented. Do you think another community would have treated her differently?
Oh, you mean another Native American?
Another tribe, or
No, just another community, because community is another important concept in this story. I'm thinking about how the family on the Drexler farm, how they seem to accept her without question or reservation.
I think yes. I again, I think that was God, divine. Because had she have gone to someone else within even that town, possibly Grammy, she would have made friends with, but some of the other people that were possibly in that town, or even the town that Rachel was from, they would have looked down upon her. So she would have continued that cycle of even what was happening in the tribe.
I agree.
I never really said why the tribe looked down on her, though. So does that say in the next book?
No,
Yeah.
well, I thought it did. I
They
think
did. They alluded to,
She had a son.
yes, she
She
had
had-
a child out of wedlock.
Yes.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
well,
but it was not with an.
it was not with an Indian, it was white. So
There
that
you
was
go.
why they
Okay.
They
she
were
was
hunters or something, Melody, right?
they were traders. Yes, like
That's right.
I don't know, pelts and stuff like that, trading type things.
He
So
ran
Okay.
with
I
them.
I don't know if I agree with the community wouldn't have accepted her. I think it depends on who she fell in line with. Had she
Right.
met Grammy and Martha,
She
being
would've.
Christian women, they would have accepted her, because God forgives us for our sins. And she came to Rachel, and Rachel took her in, and so I think it just depends on who she fell in line with in that community. If it was a strong Christian community, then I think I would like to think she would have been accepted, like she has been now into this family. So
she comes back in the next book. Is that what I'm on?
next book
I
is all.
expected her and Pete to
It's
be
mostly
together.
all about her.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay,
I
I
just
have to read that one
today.
I know, because that was one thing that was hanging. They just left that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
she went back, and they didn't pay
Didn't
any
mention her
attention to
anymore.
her. And I was
Right.
like, well, then what happened?
It's
Right.
good.
The
It's
next
good.
books are really good.
I highly
Yeah.
recommend getting the other books.
The second one is really good. I just finished it today, and they bring Mary and Melvin's family comes back around
Yeah.
in a
Oh,
fun way.
okay.
They
Ooh.
tie up a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
and the third one is really good too. And
I haven't done that one yet.
I'm looking forward
Okay,
to
I'm ready to
fourth.
change my book. I want to change it to the second book.
Well, I was curious if you all would have wanted to continue reading the series, but it sounds like there is some interest.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely. It was
absolutely.
good. In the back of the books when she talks about it too, like, she is the publisher, she's the person. She actually gives a website to be able to see the prequel. So, and it talks about Melvin's and his first wife, Mary's wife. I
His
haven't
first
read that
wife?
one yet. I haven't had time, but it's like, I think it's on a web or something.
Yeah.
The only thing about this book that I didn't like was that you can't get it on audio.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's because it's so new and she's a new publisher or new author.
Right.
So
And it's not even at the bookstore, because I went to the bookstore to get it.
And it's
No.
not at the library either.
well,
Yeah.
if you look in the front cover, if you guys have the book, if you look in the front cover, it actually says Heidi Gray McGill Books LLC and published, copyright, everything's by her. So and I kind of am familiar with this only because my daughter really wants to publish in different things. There's like 3 different ways you can do stuff. And it's really hard to get published by a large company now. The way books have been. Well, you would know, Cindy. So you kind of have to go to the self-publishing sometimes to get that out there. I am curious to know, Adela, how you found out about it, because I loved it. So it was this is my
To
type
be
of book.
honest, okay, so when Vivian invited me,
I thought so.
she said,
I think she froze.
I know her voice.
There you go.
Ideas about the kinds of books that we would read. So it was pleasantly surprised. But I had a book. I do have a last question, because I'm curious. How, if at all, did the book relate to your life? That's my
I
think
just thought it,
Odella, tell the question again. You froze.
Yes,
honey.
Oh, did I? Okay, I said, how, if at all, did the book?
uh-oh.
I think your question, Odella, is how, if at all, the book relates to your life.
Yes.
Yes.
To our
Okay.
individual lives.
Yes.
I don't know. I just thought it showed you how hard it was back then. I mean, life was tough. I guess just everything was so tough. I'm just grateful I live in this time with some conveniences.
Well, I think for me, one of the things that it relates to my life now is sometimes I want to choose the direction. I want to say where I should go. And it's almost as though sometimes you don't go exactly the path that you choose, but you go the path that God chooses for you. And that was how it relates. I would have made my life totally different and a lot easier. But there are things that I learned along the way from some of the hiccups that were along the way.
Right. I'll say the way it relates to my life, what a desire that I have always had in my heart is to be married and have a family. So I could relate to that. And, I never thought I would be at this age and still single, but you know what? It's like my life is in God's hands. I trust in him. I know who he has for me is outstanding and exceedingly abundantly above all I could ask or think. I'm just like, okay, Lord, bring them on quickly. It's like time is ticking away.
But I like to think, Cindy, he's been preparing us.
Amen.
Preparing us for
Exactly.
that.
I know
That
sometimes,
was right.
Adele, I say, Lord, prepare both of us quickly now. You need to turn. I'm not going to say what I was just thinking because I don't want that to happen. But anyway, so, and I think all of us, we have desires of our heart that, we're still waiting to be fulfilled, no matter what it is. But anyway.
Right.
I think
right.
for me, it would be the
And
sense
for
of,
me, just
go ahead, Odella.
go ahead. No, I was just gonna go ahead. I want you to finish.
For me, it would be the
Please
sense,
go ahead.
I mean, not that I don't always want God to hurry up and do what I want, because Sandra, I'm right there with you. My ideas are always right on target. I don't understand why he's not in tune with that. But for me, it's the sense of family, because I came from, I mean, my family, my blood family, I have 2 sisters, that's it. And I found my dad in my late 30s, my birth father, but our relationship is very, I mean, he's not my dad, he's my father, but he's not my dad. So
Right.
we have a relationship, but it's not like people that grow up with their dad. It's different. And then marrying David, there's a whole lot of them. There's a whole lot of Bumsteads, and they all come together and they know everything about everybody. And it's the family that I've always wanted. I always wanted 6 children. I was a Brady Bunch fanatic. And Ryan, I have 2 children by birth. Ryan is my 6th pregnancy, and God took 4 of those children from me. And marrying David, I got 4 children marrying him. So I have my 6 children that I always wanted. So for me, it's a sense of family, because it's not always about blood and it's not always about marriage. I have 3 girlfriends, and they are closer to me. They are my family, closer than my birth, my blood sisters.
Yes.
So for me, it's the sense of family and community, and you build that family that is going to protect you and take care of you and be there for you, and no matter what.
Amen.
So that's what I
Yes.
loved the most about this book. My walk with Christ is right on target, but that sense of family and community, that's exactly what I've always wanted, and I've worked my whole life towards.
Amen.
So
Amen.
I think for me, it was, I want to have, the faith that Grammy had, and, just that communion. I mean, I feel like I have a good sense of a walk with God, but some of the things that she did and was relentless about, I found myself going, I wish I could do that, and it kind of, for me, gave me that example of what faith really is, and just really believing in God that way, and trusting him for even, the neighbor, whether the neighbor was supposed to be the person I married or not. I mean, I actually am very happy. We are going to be celebrating our anniversary for 33 years, so I can't complain that at all. But, just having the faith like she had, and believing the way all of them, in some way, in some form, the faith that they had to have. And I couldn't imagine doing it without God.
Amen.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
Well, pretty much what Melody said is how I feel too. The exemplary things that they showed and their walk with God was just so touching to me. And this is the first Western book I think I've ever read that all kinds of catastrophes. I mean, there were some catastrophes, but there was a lot of running around and killing people, and bad guys and good guys and all that kind of stuff. So it was just such a refreshing book. And like Melody said, the second and third book are excellent too, if you guys want to go on and read those. I loved it, and wouldn't the world be a better place, if such a great place to live, if everyone put their faith in God and live, true to his word and will. That's
Yes.
kind of the way I felt about it. It would just be, you know, such a better world.
Amen.
Mhm.
Yes.
I think for me, um, even though Melvin struggled with his faith, he still understood the character of God. And to even say, you know, I can't imagine being a slaveholder like my father. I'm going to walk away from this because I know it's not right. And to do that and to have the strength and the fortitude to do that, even though he struggled with his faith, but there was still a part of him that trusted God. And I think him stepping out like that really saved, even though he lost his wife, it really saved that whole other community of people. And that's how important it is for us to trust God when he tells us to do something.
Yes. Yes. Anyone else? Well, thank you, ladies, for sharing this journey with me. Desire of my heart. That's all I have.
Awesome. Adela, phenomenal book. And I'm just going to say something the book brought out that I think is a fabulous thing. And it used to happen. And wouldn't it be lovely if community was that way again? Where when someone's in need, and our community could be our cul-de-sac or our street, or our community could be the people in our lives where we really go to them in time of need. When there's something, we just drop and we go take care of it. If their house, something happened, we go and we work together to get it back to the right standing. So, you know, even if we just do that as one with our community, it's like,
Yes.
Yeah.
so awesome. Thank you so very much for a phenomenal book club, Odella. And I'm going to stop the recording. Hopefully everyone loved our book.